Hello, and welcome to episode 66, Order 66, however you want to describe this, of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is Darick. Uh, Darick, what did you get to in Flesh and Blood?
What did I get up to in Flesh and Blood? I went to my armory this week because we were finally not canceled due to weather. Even though we did get like a heap of snow over the weekend, on Wednesday, which is my normal armory day, we actually had uh, fair enough weather for me to make it out. And I won my armory. Very excited to report. And I did so playing Arachne because I wanted to get some practice in. Now I was playing like a hyper defensive healing version that a buddy of mine had built. I mean, just like all in on the imagine old him stall whatever, but just with extra banish mechanics to speed up the fatigue game plan. But it was fun. I beat a Kano and an Azalea by fatiguing them, which felt kind of nice. The Kano one was extra funny because like I'm banishing their stuff, they're banishing their stuff. Like it was a race to the bottom of the deck, basically. So I won my armory, and I had the option because we had some cancellations and it's the start of a new month. They gave me the option of which cold foil to pick, and because I still hadn't won my reversed spider's bite, I got that out of the way. So now my assassin stuff is all cold foiled out, minus the legs and the mask because my wallet hates me. But yeah, that was like the core of my playing, which I was really excited about. But then I basically spent all weekend looking at the amazing spoilers that were coming out and getting more and more and more excited for Outsiders, because this set looks amazing for limited. This set looks like it is introducing some very cool play styles. I don't know exactly how things will shake out, because early predictions meta wise are always I think very difficult to make, but I at least what I like the most and what I'm seeing in the set is that they're at least understanding where we are as a community. Now we're hitting the stage in the game's lifespan where the feedback that they're getting from larger sample sizes has made it into the design. So what I mean by that is the first few sets were probably already in the can when the game was launched. It was in development for like 7 years. And as much as you can play test your game ahead of time, there is no substitute for just unleashing it on thousands and thousands of people. So now they understand play patterns a bit more. And I think this is the first set where I've looked at it and I've said, okay, they're understanding how we as players view the game, and now they are designing around that, which is very exciting for the game, because that usually means that this is the point where like your depth and your interactivity start to go up, and we'll talk about that when we hit the spoilers, because there are some hallmark cards that, at least on the surface, I don't think looked super overwhelmingly like good, but from a design standpoint, they are giving me amazing signals about how the devs are paying attention to the game. So this is my long-winded way of saying strap in, ladies and gentlemen. You're in for a long one, because I am very clearly excited. This is the longest intro I've ever had on this show, and we haven't even started talking about the cards yet.
Yeah, you're animated. That much is
Yeah,
for
I'm.
sure. You are.
I am. You're getting
You're
the
up.
tan and gray special tonight.
Jesus, no, I'm not. Okay. I just played my one armory. I am leaving on vacation on to Arizona on Wednesday. Technically leaving Tuesday night, so I was making sure that I did spend time with my wife and do some things around the house that needed done. And we had wanted to try making at home nigiri, and I need to really work on sushi rice. It's not exactly the easiest thing to work with. Never done it before. It's gonna take some effort, but I will get it down. But I did make a pot sticker sauce for the first time that tasted right, so I feel good there. Like we did get a win in there. As far as armories go, we just had a Blitz armory. I went 2-2. We have grown another Kasai in the community, and so there were 3 Kasais playing. and one Kasai went 4-0, one Kasai went 3-1, and one Kasai went 2-2. And every loss that a Kasai had was to another Kasai. So it was like, okay, like we're gonna keep doing this until you stop us. And so far, no one stopped us.
All right. Well, I'm waiting for a shifty Kano to show up and say Kasayanara.
There were 2 shifty Kanos that both got Kasai'd.
Yeah, but that's because they didn't say Kasayanara.
If they would have said Kasayanara, it probably would have worked out better for him.
It's a much needed part of the combo. Like if you miss that part, it just doesn't work
anymore. Okay.
No.
That makes sense. We're gonna Jesus Christ. Okay.
You missed me.
I did. Okay. We're gonna jump in. And so there was about, I don't know, 100-ish cards spoiled, I want to say. I mean, somewhere in that general vicinity.
There's like an entire expansion set's worth of cards spoiled.
Almost.
I mean, not everything, but yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah. I think we're missing one legendary still, maybe not. And the Fabled and a couple of loose cards, and there's some stuff in here that I'm pretty sure are rainbows that are not showing as rainbows yet in the spoilers that will fill in a lot of these gaps. But for the most part, the majority of this set, I think, is out in the wild now. And since we're not going to do this card by card, sorry, May, we are going to do is we're going to kind of take this hero by hero and then classes for the heroes that aren't new. But because we got to rip this fucking Band-Aid off, otherwise you're just going to sit there and kind of hum at this low frequency for the entire time that we're talking. We're going to start with Azuri because this is some bullshit.
No,
Darick,
that's not the way to describe it. Like this is outstanding.
Darick, do the honors.
Yeah, if anybody has missed the hero reveals, our new Lord and Savior Switchblade has the standard 4 intellect, 40 health, but has one of the coolest hero powers in the game, and that's why I'm really excited about this. It's going to be very hard for me to decide whether I want to continue playing Arachne or make the switch to Switchblade. Pun very intended, thank you.
God fucking damn it.
So the hero power says once per turn attack reaction, banish a card from your hand face down. Now this part is like interesting to me because you do that first and then turn the banished card this way face up. So I don't know if there's going to be something else that interacts with like turning banished cards face down, face up at some point in the future, because otherwise it would just be like banish a card from your hand and then you could have the rest of this text. And it would make sense to me. So I've been stewing on that since this hero was released, and I don't understand why it specifically names this order. But it does say banish a card from your hand face down, turn the card banished this way face up. Then it continues, if it's an attack action card with cost 2 or less, put target attacking card with stealth from the active chain link on the bottom of its owner's deck. Then put the banished card onto the active chain link as the attacking card. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. This is an attack reaction, and it does require the current attacking chain link to have stealth, right? So this also tells me there's likely never going to be a way that we can give our daggers stealth, because then you could theoretically jam them to the bottom of your deck.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. But it does, however, mean that all of the things that you can pile onto stealth, now any defending player also has to worry about not just known attack reactions, but literally any generic or assassin attack in the game that costs 2 or less, right? Because what this does is it says any stealth attack you have, you can go, actually, that wasn't the real attack, it was this one, and you swap it out. And so if you're swinging with and there's a few of them in the set, right? But there's a lot of stuff that's like a 0 for 3 with stealth and then additional attack. So you start with something that looks really benign, and if your opponent's like, hey, I don't see any on hits or whatever, I'll say no blocks, And then you're like, oh, no blocks. Well, this is now a command and conquer, because again, only the active link has to have stealth, not the card you're swapping with. That only needs to be 2 or less. And that is huge because, again, there are command and conquers, there are erase faces, there are new cards. Obviously, in this set, there's actually quite a lot of like 2 for 6s, including her specialization. Her specialization says if you've played or activated an attack reaction, this chain link, Shakedown has, when this hits a hero, choose red, yellow, or blue. They reveal their hand, banish a card of the chosen color. So obviously, if you're using her hero power to put this onto the chain link, then you have activated an attack reaction just by doing that. So then again, that benign maybe 0 for 3 is suddenly a 6 with a very relevant on hit. And oh, by the way, because I did it as an attack reaction, if you don't have defense reactions now, you can't throw on additional blocks. So the mind games are massive. The on hit threat is very relevant. It's almost very reminiscent to me of playing Dorinthia, where they throw the Dawnblade and you're like, okay, well, this could be a million different things, right? It's kind of the same thing, but instead of Dawnblade, it's any attack with stealth. That's your Dawnblade opener. And then whatever's coming after that is potentially a problem. Now, the last thing that I want to highlight before we dive into some of the like really awesome power plays outside of the specialization is that this is a replace it with a card 2 or less, but in nowhere in this text right now does it say you have to pay for that card.
No, you
The
don't.
banish a card is the activation. So you can also theoretically jam in some very cost efficient swapsies with her activation, which is huge. I mean, like it gets over one of the big issues I had before. I've been talking about how, at least when you play Arachne, the daggers sometimes feel kind of bad because they're 2 per. So like when you compare them to Kadachi's, yes, the daggers have guaranteed go again, they have the piercing and they have the on hit, but pitching a blue to Kadachi's is like I swing for one, and then I do the things. Pitching a blue when you've got 2 daggers usually feels weird because it's like I do 1 dagger and then, you know, maybe 1 attack or whatever, or you have to have multiple blues if you even want to get 2 dagger attacks. And it felt very limiting. But now that we see this other assassin hero who, again, has the mind games, but also some of these like cost swapping things, I fully understand why the daggers had to cost 2 at this point,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it would have been dumb.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. So there are all the daggers. We're going to get to those in a second. There's one thing I want to highlight, and that is that Isolate is a fucked up Flesh and Blood card because it is a 0 cost 3/2/1 rainbow with stealth. So Azuri's ability, yada yada yada. This fucking thing has dominate,
Yep.
and you go to the reaction step after blocks. So
Yep.
you're effectively giving whatever you want to swap out dominate. This thing as a blue is a pain in the ass because
Absolutely.
you have to block it with something or else you don't know what you're going to get smashed with. And I was experimenting a little bit on Talishar because a lot of this is already up. Curtis, thank you. February, thank you. Talishar, I know the code isn't perfect yet. But holy shit, is it just horrifying. I mean, I'm playing non-optimized stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to jam Isolate and things that make blood rot. And just swapping out Death Touch onto an Isolate chain link is just a kick in the balls. It's just like, okay, well, you blocked, and that's adorable. I'm proud of you for that. But you're now going to take damage, and I'm going to give you a pox. Like, we're going to give you a 6, and you're going to take pox because that's what we do around here, apparently. It's just kind of a violent thing. And then when you start combining these things with like the codexes, and we'll get to those and everything else, you were right, that is a cycle. And it starts to feel like the engine just is so efficient, just generically efficient, at getting your opponent dead. Because in theory, you never actually spend an isolate. It's you just don't.
No, it goes to the bottom.
They go to the bottom, they come back, and then you do it again. And it's just the end of one of the games I was playing had turned into my pitch stack was isolates and surgical extractions, and they were basically out of ways to deal with it. And so it was okay, isolate, surgical, surgical through the isolate. You blocked 3, great, sounds awesome. Yeah. Banish a card from your hand, banish a tap card. Like it was just gross.
So there's a couple of other things that I want to highlight, at least for her package, that are standouts, because obviously her, yeah, really, obviously, isolate and her ability to swap in very potent cards is really strong. But even some of the new generics are heavy hitters. So there's one that was revealed called Sneak Attack, which is a 2 for 3, which does not sound like very intimidating, but it says if you've played or activated an attack reaction this chain link, Sneak Attack has +4. So this becomes your budget Enlightened Strike, because you can start with a stealth attack and then do the swapsy, and suddenly it's a 7. And even though I don't suspect it will like long term be a thing, in theory, because this costs 2 and many of the other things that you're likely going to be pushing in cost 2, Pummel Switchblade could very well be an archetype as well, and then it starts to get a bit absurd, and that is something to consider. But the other 2 cards that really stood out to me as far as like interesting ways to interact, one is Spreading Plague. So obviously, when you're not playing Isolate and you don't have the Dominate effect, there are going to be times where your opponents, just like you do against Dorinthia, they might consider overblocking, because they'll say, okay, I know this is a 0 for 3, but if you swap out for Command and Conquer, I'm hosed, so I'm going to throw multiple blocking cards in front of this, right? So Spreading Plague is an attack reaction. It's a yellow pitch, costs 1, and it blocks for 3. But it says create X Blood Rot Pox tokens under the defending hero's control, where X is the number of defending cards this chain link. So this can potentially turn into a bunch of direct damage, especially if they don't have pitch, because let's be honest, if they are blocking with 2 or 3 cards from hand, they're likely not going to have enough resources to pay for those tokens. And the fact that this is defending card specifically means that on those turns where your opponents say, I want to keep my hand, but I'm going to throw a bunch of equipment in front of this attack, well, now you can punish that as well. You're like, oh, sweet, you blocked with 3 equipment, take 3 Blood Rot Pox tokens. Are you going to pay for it to keep that hand, or are you going to take 6 extra damage now? So I really love that card for a way to punish people for overblocking. And then the other one that really jumped out to me was Carolina's reveal, Infiltrate, because I've been a Bravo simp, let's be honest, since I started playing the game, and I was starting to get a little bit sad that I would not be able to play Crippling Crush as an assassin. However, Infiltrate means I still have the opportunity to do so if I get lucky. So Infiltrate, some of the stealth cards are there for swapsies like Isolate, but Infiltrate is an interesting one because it means you want to block it even before you consider the attack reactions. So this is a 0 for 3 with stealth, but it says when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. You may play it until the end of your next turn. You may play it, and it's the end of your next turn. So if you want to give this go again because you saw something spicy and you have leftovers, you can do it right then and there. But let's say you reveal Crippling Crush, right? You banish that. Well, then sweet. I'll arsenal a card. We'll go to the next turn and I'll basically have a 6-card hand. And I'm sure I'll figure out a way to pay for that Crippling Crush at that point, or, make something else happen. Like you're playing against Ninja, it's likely going to be something with go again. There's just so many things you can do with this. So this kind of demands your opponent to block this, and then you can figure out how you want to go from there. Because I think it's going to be very easy to forget as we go through these reveals that Assassin got a ton of just generic attack reactions as well. So there's all the spikes, and there's the existing ones when you think about like Cut to the Chase or whatever it is. So yes, the hero ability is very important, but I think that a good deck is going to be a mix, right? Where you've got a lot
Mhm.
of good on hits you're trying to sneak in, but also ways to go over the top when they're expecting you to swap out. And so ultimately, I think that infiltrate's going to be a key part of that. That also reminds me, we got we got a chest like I thought we
We
would because
did
of the tunic thing. So
redback shroud.
tell me about that.
Yeah, this is actually quite powerful. This is again in the same kind of kit with how assassins already work. It is a chest, one block, battle worn, which is already quite good. As an attack reaction, you can destroy the shroud, and the next attack reaction card you play this turn costs one less to play. So that's a free razor reflex or a
Yeah.
discounted pummel. Um,
Or free spikes right
Free
from that
spikes.
cycle.
Yep.
So this is I like to think of it as this is a tunic that you
Mhm.
get to use only for attack reactions, but like
But
that's
wait,
still really good with battle worn.
there is more. While Redback Shroud, that's a hard thing to say, is in your graveyard at the start of your turn, you may destroy 2 silver you control. If you do, equip the shroud. That's so we get the assassin ability linked to it too, so we can rebuy this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's a tunic we can get back.
Right. It's a rebuyable tunic with battle worn. That is stellar for what this is trying to do. Like if your dreams of you dream of playing pummel surgical extraction, here you go. If you dream of playing razor reflex stealth, here you go. It just works.
So
It's
one
elegance. I
other
like
I was going to say,
elegance.
so one other interesting thing that I've been thinking about specifically with Missouri here is that I was wondering how the contract stuff was going to fit into her kit potentially, because obviously we have these really cool assassin equipment pieces. And in my head, I was like, oh man, like it's going to kind of suck if that's only meant really for like the Arachne playstyle, just hypothetically, right? Before this all was revealed. And then you still run the standard equipment set with her. But now that I've seen her hero ability, there's a lot of really powerful on hits I want to sneak in, but I also think that because of how powerful the assassin equipment is and your ability to get it back, um, I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of what I call like the best of the contract attacks also still get played because you can just swap those in, right? You start with your stealth, then you pop something else in and it hits and you still get the banish effect. And
Yep.
then you also make your silver to get your equipment back, rinse, repeat, that sort of thing. So I just really like how this set made the rest of the assassin kit come together. And that's like not even counting the cool dagger stuff.
Yeah, then we have daggers. Um so they basically took Spider's Bite and said, what if we had a Spider's Bite for every type of card? And they went ahead and did that. I do have one gripe about these, and I'm going to get that out of the way now before we go too deep, and that's that they are paired to numbers as majestics on the sheet, and that's kind of a feel bad because it seems like these are going to be twice as likely at that point. And I understand you do need 2 of them uh, in order to play all of them, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I opened a scale peeler. That's cool. Oh, I opened a scale peeler. Okay, well, I
It,
got my 2, I guess, and then another
it
one. Oh,
is, so for the collectability, that parts of feels bad. But my counterpoint to that, though, is that it also means you're more likely to pull these for limited. And since they were very heavily, advertising this as being a very strong limited set, I do like the idea of them being a bit more populous in the draft and the sealed formats, if that makes sense.
yeah, it does. And all of these are going to look gorgeous in cold foil. The nerve scalpel, I think,
Oh
will
yeah, I
be
was gonna say the
absolutely a
scalpel is gonna
search.
look so good. The
I think
scalpel art
the
is fantastic.
yeah, I think the orbital class is going to look very cool in rainbow specifically.
Mm-hmm.
The scale peeler is actually just quite cool looking, just generally speaking. But that the nerve scalpel in cold foil is going to be ridiculous. But yes, so the nerve scalpel is the defend with 1 or more reaction cards. They get -1. The orbital class, and this is on hit. Like so, if the nerve scalpel hits, then during this turn, Reaction cards have -1 while defending. Then the same story with Orbitoclast and Orbitoclast. That has to be right? With non-attack cards, and then Scale Peeler with equipment. So you had, and they all have Piercing 1, and they're all 2 cost attack for ones. So we have this cycle of daggers, and it's like, wow, like, why would you want, like, why? What would you do with the cycle of daggers, Darick? What would you ever do with this cycle of
what
daggers?
what would you do? Oh, I was so excited when I saw this because it immediately was paid off. So I'll start with the first part that was revealed, which was there is a legendary arms equipment for assassin and ninjas. So it's a dual class piece of equipment called Flick Knives, and it says once per turn attack reaction, you pay 0. Target dagger you control that isn't active on the chain link deals 1 damage to target hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, so that means it triggers any on hits, and then you destroy the dagger. And then the arms themselves have 1 armor with blade break. So right out of the gate, this means assassin. If you also want to run this knives kind of toolbox that I'll talk about in a moment, you've got your full equipment set. So I love that we just get that. But when I saw this card, I thought, okay, well, there's got to be a way to equip knives somehow, because 1, you're breaking your daggers to do this, but 2, they gave us Spider's Bite, but then they gave us Scalpel and Orbitoclast and Scale Peeler, and these all have that kind of toolboxy feel because they all attack different kinds of cards. You'll want them for different matchups, and so I was like, man, if it doesn't exist now, it's got to exist somewhere in the future. And then later in the weekend, we get Concealed Blade. So this is a 3-pitch, 0 cost assassin and ninja attack reaction. It also blocks for 3. So even Katsu and Benji potentially love this. But it says target assassin or ninja attack action card gains +1 attack. And when this hits, equip a dagger from your inventory. Now, I assume with our rules update, that's going to be what we are now describing as our sideboard. They'll probably call that officially your inventory. And that also makes me wonder whether or not we're going to have more cards that let you fish from your inventory, whether it's for equipment or even just like attack reactions or whatever, because this sets a precedent. But I love the idea of, like, you've got your daggers, you do your stabby, then you go with this Flick Knives. And the reason I like the Flick Knives thing is because it does the 1 damage, which is very relevant. If you've ever played Aria Draft or Sealed, sacrificing your gloves to poke somebody for 1 can be a really big deal when it's hard to mitigate. But also, because it counts as a hit, it means whatever daggers you have on you at that moment, if the way they block means that having hit with something, it reduces the defense and thus makes your other current attack hit, that means this becomes a very threatening card just by sitting on the board, right? With your pair of daggers, your opponent now has to look at what daggers do you have and how they want to block accordingly. And then even later in the game, mind you, if you've somehow, some way lost your dagger to Flick Knives or some other thing, like later on down the road, you can now use Concealed Blade to get a dagger back, but more so that lets you toolbox further, right? So like maybe you blow Flick Knives early because you thought you were playing against aggro dash and now you're against control dash or whatever, and so you want to swap out a dagger, so you blow Flick Knives early and then you Concealed Blade to get the better one back for the long haul. Like I love the versatility here.
Yeah, then you have cards like Hurl, where you can pay an
Yep.
additional cost to do the same thing that Flick Knives does. It's a 0 for 3 go again in red that blocks for 2 because everybody hates fun. And that has that same effect where you pay 1, you have to pay 1 this time, but it's when you play it, but it does that same thing. It throws the knife. So you can kind of keep that up with multiple cards and keep kind of switching through your kit a little bit. The bigger thing is like it's another deck that just against this deck, you can't afford to go to 1 or 2 because you could just die.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of that going around.
There sure is. There's going to be a whole lot of, okay, I went to 3. I'm at 3. I can take this blood rot pox, go to 1, and everything's fine.
I mean, to be honest, we didn't even talk about like toxicity yet, but there's so against assassin and rangers, I'll just say it right now. There's gonna be times where you can't go to 6
Right.
because toxicity.
You might just be dead.
Yeah. So we'll just cover that one here real quick as we talk about these new life thresholds you have to think about. Toxicity is a 0 cost assassin ranger non-attack action. And it says the next assassin or ranger attack action card you play this turn gains. When this hits a hero, they lose 5 health and then go again, obviously, because it's a non-attack. So you just give your next attack the on hit of, take 5 extra. It's a 0 for 5 as long as your attack hits. So again, very relevant when you get to those sub 10 life thresholds. Huge.
Yep, it sure is. And not to short shrift anybody here, but we'd still have Arachne solitary confinement.
Yep.
And kind of a basic hero. It's 19 health, 4 intellect. This is kind of reminds me of an Ira situation because they just have that single line of text and it's very, very simple. It's your first attack with stealth each turn has go again. That's it.
Yeah, but that's really good.
That's really fucking good.
That's especially as we start talking about like limited. When I saw this, I was like, I love Yuzuri, but playing her in limited is going to be, I think, dependent on what high end attacks you draft or open in your sealed deck to do the swapping. But when I saw Arachne, I was like, oh baby, I can just go wide. Like I can play a stealth, and then if I'm running the attack reactions, great. And if not, then I can just follow it up with another big swing. Or I can go, because it's your first attack with stealth. It doesn't even have to be your first attack, right? So it's
right.
You can go dagger into the stealth, into something. It's so simple, but it's so powerful.
Yeah, it makes a lot of these like must blocks that you see. So like infiltrate is definitely a must block, right? Like you don't want to get hit by that fucking thing, especially in limited. Maybe you just have all arrows in your deck and you're fine with it. But it's you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're getting hit by an infiltrate most of the time. Same thing with like a backstab or not backstab, infect or any of these other things that give you tokens. You don't want to be in a position where you're getting hit by those either.
Or like I keep looking at, so again, when I was thinking about this from the limited perspective, because that's where my lights really turned on, Prowl is a common. And so this was a card that was revealed. It's a 0 cost 3 attack with stealth that blocks for 3, but it says the next attack with stealth you play this combat chain gets +1.
Yeah,
so
this becomes a breakpoint.
Doesn't seem like that like big of a deal, but it does take your next one with stealth to a breakpoint, much like Logan said. And also because Arachne always gives this go again, like you don't even have to do any weird tricks to get this to pop off, right? Like this is just straight up good. And it's a common. And so if you know you're going Arachne and other people are on Switchblade, for example, they might not prioritize Prowl. So you could end up with a bunch of them, and that's just your opener from here on out. Like that's so good.
Yeah, I mean, you can just do something as simple as attack with the best way to what are the best ways to do this? Attack with an infect, like, right? With go again.
Well, I was gonna say it. No, I mean your best way is probably like dagger into Prowl, and then you follow the Prowl up with your infect, right? Because the Prowl would get to go again. So your infect now has a 4, so it's already at a break point. And then on top of that, you could be packing Razor's Edge. You could be packing any of the new spikes.
Yeah, that's the point. Is that you just get that.
Right. And you can do all of the spikes. Again, if you do it this way, right? You start with dagger and you pitch a blue. All your spikes are active still with your 1 floating resource because both infect and Prowl cost 0. So you're just churning through.
And all of this is to inform why sneak attack doesn't have stealth.
Yes.
Because if that card had stealth, that'd be a big fucking problem. It's like, sneak attack, spike it. What now?
I will also say though, the other flavor. So obviously, if you use Switchblade's ability to put sneak attack into play, like it's already active, right? Just a quality
it's a 7 attack. Yeah, it's a 7.
But I do really enjoy that you don't have to do it that way. That you can just play it as like I'm paying, a 2 for a 3, but you know, if I've pitched a blue, I have that one floating resource. You know, how are you going to block this? Are you expecting me to spike it? Because if I throw
You can't
any
spike
spike
sneak
on it,
attack. You can't do it.
why not?
The spikes
Oh,
require stealth.
okay. So,
Razor's Edge also requires
Razor's
stealth.
Edge. Yep.
Also
Yep.
requires stealth.
Also requires stealth. Okay. They got me.
They got you good.
Well, for limited, but
Yeah.
once we go to constructed, I get my pummel. So
yes, you can pummel it. And pummeling it was probably going to be a lot of fun. I'm thinking it's going to be some of the most fun you can do in the set. There's probably also at some point in time going to be a decent attack reaction that we'll get in the set that like actually does a thing so that we can
well,
make it good enough.
so interesting bit though, right? It is a sneak attack is an assassin attack action though. So while it's less likely to happen in limited, all of your equipment that you can blow up to play as a reaction, you could just play on sneak attack, right? So like once you go to constructed, it's not even just like pummel and whatever. That like there's so many consistent ways that you can trigger that.
Well, I mean, there are some pretty consistent ways, just generically speaking, too, because you can do a lot of fun things in this set already. So you can just, if you end up at common getting a Mask of Shifting Perspectives, that has an attack reaction.
Oh yeah, that's the dagger one, right?
Right, but it's a whenever
it doesn't matter.
Hits.
It's an attack reaction, right? Yeah.
You don't really give a shit. Like it's just okay. Well, I'm going to make the 7. So there are ways to go play with this. There's also short and sharp, where target attack action card with 2 or less base gets +3 as a 1 cost. So that gives it +6 or whatever. Or +7. Is it a 2 for 3? Is it a 2 for 4? I'm having to scroll all the way through this thing over and over and over again. And
short and sharp.
It's a 3. Sneak attack is a 3. So short and sharp is going to give sneak attack +7.
I thought I had discounted that one because it's the attack action card has to have
cost 2 or less.
No, 2 or less base attack.
That's right.
So
see, we're fucking this up all over the place. Yeah.
Well, it's because like you saw the stealth thing and you're like, that's why sneak attack doesn't have stealth, and it was funny because I mentally skipped that, but I made the same thought when I saw short and sharp, which was, oh, this is specifically 2 or less and not 3 or less because of sneak attack. So we both arrived at the same conclusion, just with different cards. Sneak attack very clearly had I think some impact on testing this.
This is probably why it doesn't block for 3. This is probably why it's very narrow, and it's probably why it doesn't have stealth, and it's probably why it's a 3
really
base. It's still really fucking good. So whatever. I'm having fun with that. There's God, I just look at the Assassin's kit, and once you go past like the assassin only cards and you get into the flick knives and mask and blade blade cuff and all of these other things that are the dual class for assassin, these are also just brilliant.
Stab wound
is great. I mean, one, it's called stab wound,
right? But the art is also fantastic.
Art is insane. But that's where toxicity comes from. Virulent Touch, which is another can't be played from hand. It's a 0 for 4. But when the chain link resolved, if it's defended by a card from hand, it creates a blood pot token on them. So if they block Virulent Touch, they get blood rotted, which is funny because, again, if you're using Azuri's ability and they block whatever the attack is, you can Virulent Touch in and then they get blood rotted because when the chain link closes, whoopsie daisy. It's funny as hell. And then you have all the codexes, which these are also just insanely good.
Well, and then there's even Death Touch that we've already talked about on a previous episode.
I have too many things I love about this card.
Yeah, great news. Switchblade can put that into play, so have at it.
Yeah, sure can. Does it great. And that's also one of those fun ones where if you just play a codex and then you just put the Death Touch in your arsenal off the codex.
Yep, that's another thing that I thought was really neat with the Death Touch as well. But I also keep coming back to it costs 1 technically, so it can be hit by Razor Reflex. So you can do the switchblade to put death touch in, and then you can razor reflex your death touch so that you can go again after you've hit them
For
like
9.
a truck.
Yeah, for 9 with a blood rod on it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a thing.
Assassin seems so fun.
And then you also get
I know
access
I
to
was
3 of the
already
traps.
excited, but
You get access to some of the traps, like blood rot trap, which is exactly what it sounds like. I mean, you're blocked for 3 at red. When this defends an attacking hero and the attacking hero has played an activated reaction in this chain link, create a blood rot token. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. React. You won't.
The one that I think is actually kind of massive though. So like of the 3 traps, because they all have different qualifiers, frailty trap stood out to me. So frailty trap says,
yeah,
it's a 0 for 3 attack reaction, but when it defends an attack with go again, create a frailty token under the attacking hero's control. Now, the reason that I think that is massive, if you don't remember, frailty tokens are the one where attack action cards played from arsenal and weapon attacks have -1. So if they start off with a go again that's not the Kodachis, right, in limited or whatever, and you hit them with that, then you've just turned off their weapon attacks for the turn. Like that's actually a really big deal because that becomes potentially like a 0 for 5 block that blocked wide for you because of the token.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. It's excellent at what it does. Like it is just that type of, there's so many of those cards in the set though. Like that's the problem. We're 40 plus minutes into this episode and we're still talking about fucking assassins. We're still on Azuri.
Yeah, we haven't
There's
even
more
got
cards.
to like big boy Riptide yet.
Daddy Riptide is coming. He is second on the list because if I had to like pull the trigger on not talking about something, it was going to be I would leave the ninja and ranger cards. But we have to talk about Big Daddy Riptide.
Like, yeah, we have to.
Oh my god, this is a truck. This is a house. He's a brick house. I'm gonna take the reins on Riptide.
Yeah. Because as you get ready to lead in, I just want to say that our running joke with some of the people that I playtest with has been that before we even saw Riptide, we knew he had to be broken because historically any hero with less than the standard health has been busted. So just keep that in mind.
And Riptide's my guy because we share a physique. But Riptide, he's 4 intellect, 38 health, so right into the whole, well, he has less health. This has to be pretty dangerous. Whenever you play a card from hand, you may put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. So every card you play from hand has reload. Every single one. Sigil of Solace, reload. Sink Below, reload. Scar for Scar, reload. The fun part is whenever a trap you control triggers, deal 1 damage to the attacking hero. Now, what triggering is in this instance is fulfilling the condition on the card. So if you block, if this card defends something with go again, X happens. That's the trigger. And then also the crew traps, it's been decided or has been defined as those conditions are triggers for Riptide's ability. Riptide's disgusting because think about this shit. You're a Bravo guy and you swing in, you're feeling loud and proud, and they're just like, okay, well, sink below that, trigger Riptide, put another defense reaction in my arsenal, and then react because fuck your dominate. I actually don't care.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Or and let's just go even a step further, right? It's not even sink below. It's one of his amazing traps. So you turn off my dominate and I take damage and whatever trap triggers, right?
Yeah, we have 2 new.
I was just about to say we have 2 new legendary Riptide specializations, and they are all 3 of them are nutty. We already talked about collapsing trap in the past, but not only are they nutty, but they all are still that blue pitch too. So there's so much good about them.
Yeah, the buzzsaw trap, or as I like to say, I like to call it, get fucked Briar, is your 0 block for 3 blue pitch legendary Riptide specialization. When this defends an attack with power greater than its base, the attack can't gain power this turn. Its power becomes its base. So nice channel Mount Heroic you have there. I'm going to shrink your attack and take 1. Eh? That's colossal. That is
Well,
so backbreaking.
it's good against Briar, but you know, we were just talking about sweet cards like Sneak Attack, for example, and it is insane into that. It's also really good into some attacks like on Art of War turns, or you think about so many times where people just try to like even just give like a +1 or a +2 to get over a break point. And it's worth noting that this says an attack, not an attack action card, right? So
Right,
you
it's
think
any
about like
attack.
the Dory matchup. This just auto blocks a Dawnblade
Yeah,
because
that,
it's 3 and it sets it back to 3.
yeah, bye counters.
Period.
Yeah,
Like so good. Also, one of my favorite pieces of art for all of the traps so far. And there's been some good traps, but the buzzsaw trap, if you're listening, if you're not watching like this on YouTube, it is comically absurd because it's like a boat in a river, but the buzzsaws are like coming out of a sewer drain or a wall or something, and there's also these hooks that are shooting out to grab the boat and pull it in. Like imagine something pulling you into a meat grinder that's actually made of buzzsaws. Like it's just like it's very beautiful art, but it's just like also comically absurd, so I adore it.
It's something you would see in Arcade's Murder World in the comic
Yeah.
books. It is absurd.
Or like some weird Star Wars thing. Like that's how.
Oh sure, yeah. Or just like,
or a Saw movie.
Yeah, or any Batman villain like from the 1960s television show. Like, can our intrepid crusaders escape the jaws of the buzzsaw trap? Tune in next week. And it's like, what the fuck? I can't wait to have these in foil. It's gonna make me so happy. The other one, equally fucked and equally hilarious, because it's just gory as all shit, is Spike Pit Trap. This is just, if you're wondering what the art on this is like, fam, it's bloody spikes with corpses impaled on them.
Yeah. Do you remember playing Mortal Kombat and getting like knocked into the pit?
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's actually that. This will be one of my favorite foils because they're probably just going to foil the blood. That's all I need. This one is when this defends and the attacking hero has played or activated a reaction as chain link, put the top card of their deck into their graveyard. Then they lose X health, where X is the number of cards in the graveyard with that name. So no matter what, they're taking 2. Could be more.
Yeah, I was going to say, theoretically here, you're looking at 1 from the card that goes in, right? Because you put the card in and then you look, and then you also have the Riptide trigger. But if they've got, 2 other copies in there, and then you do this and you hit the 3rd, now you got blocked out for 3 and you're taking 4. So again, when we were talking about those like weird, do I want to go down to 1 to 2 to 3 to 6 health thresholds, that is going to be a lot more dangerous, I think, in the future. Math is going to get really weird. It's not just like, really do they have, because it used to be like you'd play around Shunt or you'd play around, Brute defense reactions, right? Like you don't want to go down to 2. There was a couple of known ones, but I think against
play around
Riptide,
every fucking trap though.
like, yeah, you can't. It's just going to be absurd.
Yeah, this is just so funny because you actually can't play around every trap. It's like, okay,
so
Snapdragon
I will say
scalers. Okay.
Yeah. I will say this. There's something, as I've been looking through the spoilers, that keeps echoing in the back of my mind. And it was Brian Gottlieb once mentioned that, in the notes, right, that there is a place in the Outsiders meta for Crown of Seeds to exist, right? And you and I had, kind of pre-thought that might mean go wide stuff and obviously the Kodachis and whatever. but it's looking even like more important now because of Riptide triggers.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
spike pit trap, that's loss of life. I don't think that technically would get prevented because it's not damage. So I don't think Crown of Seeds actually stops that part. But the damage done from Riptide, suddenly like Crown of Seeds is almost like a mandatory kind of check and balance to that in some ways, because I could see where that could become a problem.
Also, front runner for best art in the set, in my mind, is Pendulum Trap. Um, it's a giant swinging blade that is effectively bisecting a human being, or whatever it is. It could be any denizen, I guess, of the pits, but they are being summarily crushed by this thing. Also, when this defends and the attacking hero has played or activated a reaction, this chain link put the top 2 cards of their deck into their graveyard. So this pairs with our spike trap, pit trap, so we can just double trap them and watch them cry. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
much fun. This is the kind of shit that I
Yeah,
like.
fun for the trapper.
Well, yeah, doing this in limited is going to be hilarious. When this defends an attack with power greater than its base, put a -1 counter on equipment the attacking hero controls. Yeah, sure. That's Boulder Trap. I mean, these are just so cool. Tar Pit Trap is just hits the go again and then turns off on hits. So you Snapdragon your Snatch and then you just add Tar Pit Trap it. Oh.
So one
I'll
of the
pick
other
one.
interesting things that I wanted to hit on, we were aware of what Riptide's bow is going to be, the token bow anyway, the barbed castaway. And I was very kind of ho-hum on it, specifically because we were like, okay, well, you can load an arrow or you can, turn one face up and then you put an aim counter on it. And at the time I remember thinking like, I guess if you're
Why
just
does that
trying to play a
matter?
bunch of
Yeah.
traps, but like if I'm just loading an arrow into my arsenal every turn, I guess like the benefit is, okay, now that becomes, instead of loading my arrows, I'm putting the aim counter on them. But it makes a hell of a lot more sense now that we know Riptide, every time he plays a card, can just jam something into his arsenal
Yep.
face down.
Yep.
So that's a very easy way for him to add aim counters to things. And there's a lot of good arrows based on aim counters that were revealed as well.
Also makes New Horizons real sweet.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's going to be, I think,
real
mandatory
good.
for him.
You know what else is going to be mandatory for him? Trench of Sunken Treasure.
Trench is pretty cool.
This thing is, one, a cool looking card. Two, it is, well, it's Federico Musetti. Two, it is super versatile. I'm going to let you take the reins on this one. I've done a lot of reading for the last couple.
So Trench of Sunken Treasure is a legendary ranger equipment in the chest slot. It has 1 armor with blade break, but it does have arcane barrier 1. However, it does also say once per turn instant, you can put a face down card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck, and if you do, you gain 1 resource. So this is rivaling Tunic for Ranger. It's definitely something you want to play if you need the arcane barrier, but even without the barrier consideration, blade break for 1, just like Tunic, and can generate a resource for you just like Tunic. Now, obviously, the drawback here is that you have to put a card face down from your arsenal to the bottom of your deck. But if you're playing Riptide specifically, and if you have that New Horizon as well, when you're playing cards on your turn and you're loading, your arsenal is likely going to have 2 cards in it almost all the time. And so if it's something that you just want to cycle, this kind of becomes your own Crown of Seeds. Now, you don't get the damage prevention, but the same way that you used to use Crown of Seeds as like a ramp effect, that's what Riptide now gets. So you can use this for resources on your turn. And that's going to be really relevant for him because as this trap-based ranger, I imagine you're going to be blocking a lot. And so this kind of allows you to potentially just take a 0 card hand, right? Where you have 2 cards in your arsenal. And if one is an arrow that costs 1, then you can shove the other one under to get your resource and then fire your arrow. So you can still go on offense with a 0 card hand with that setup. And I think that is really potent. Now, yes, you could also do it with Tunic, but you could only do that every 3 turns.
3 turns. This is
And
every
the
turn.
the ability to do this at a different cadence depending on the state of the game, I think is just going to be, more versatile for Riptide. So at a minimum, you're going to want this for the AB because I think it's an easy swap in
Oh
those
yeah.
situations. But I would actually see folks considering this even just over Tunic at certain points.
So quiver, we had like, so they gave us driftwood quiver, right? That was, or no, we had quiver of rustling leaves. That's right. And then they dropped
Yes.
3 more quivers. It's like apparently they saw some design space that needed to be filled.
Yeah. Well, they were just like, casually, okay, we've got this one generic quiver, but like one generic one isn't good enough. So let's give them another generic quiver. And then, we've got some Rangers in the set. So let's give each of them a specialization. Now, again, I will say I appreciate this mostly because you can tell this was their commitment to this being a very good limited set because
Right.
they span the rarities, right? We have a majestic, a legendary, and then each hero has their own common equipment here.
Yep.
So
Common
big fan
specialization.
of
Yep.
that.
But the quiver of abyssal depths is the legendary one. This is the go
Yeah.
again gaming one. This one is so Az got to preview this one. One, this looks like there's some Cthulhu shit. So are we? I mean, wondering if we're getting Shadow Ranger at some point all of a sudden. But
I love the art.
the art is
I think that
insane.
I think that this is one of my favorite like equipment art pieces in a while, but I'm not a fan of the card.
No, it's okay into
No, it
your
just gives me
fatigue decks.
nightmares.
Oh,
No,
that
it gives
well,
me nightmares. Like that's so. I'll just rip the band-aid off. It's an instant. You pay 3 pitch and you destroy this quiver to shuffle up to 3 arrows with different names from your graveyard into your deck. Now, the reason this gives me nightmares is because we had already, due to the proliferance of fatigue decks, we've already been seeing Lexis and the rare Azaleas as well, potentially running Remembrance to help combat the fatigue decks. And so like at one event I was playing against Alexi that played Remembrance on me twice, and like I had to block through 5 3 of a kinds. Was just not having a good time. So adding this to the mix where, if they're already going to be running Remembrance and they're going in for the long haul, for them to just go, okay, well, I'll also reload like my 3 best red arrows. Again, like I understand that they wanted to give you tools to combat fatigue, but this just like gives me nightmares. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and it's it is exactly that. It is Remembrance number 4 kind of for the deck. If it just needs to keep going over, I think a lot of this is they just want Ranger to stop being a meme, because right now, current state, your world of affairs, I guess, that it's a meme. Like Azalea still has 0 living legend points.
I think that part of the reason that Ranger is a meme though is just because the strength of the fatigue game plan has been there for a while. Even in metas where it was a bit in check, it wasn't in check because fatigue wasn't strong. It was in check because there were game plans that could go wide enough or combo hard enough to get through it, right? So you think about like Prism, obviously preyed on the Guardians, etc. But the reason that matters is because Ranger as a class doesn't have a reusable weapon. So they are very susceptible to fatigue. In other words, you make them run out of arrows and then they have nothing to shoot at you.
Right.
And it makes sense thematically, but it's just been a very effective way to combat that. And so, yes, something like Quiver helps to address that, but I also feel like that it's not addressing the other problem in my mind, which is that fatigue has been so strong as of late. But
yeah, that was one of the interesting discussions that we got up to with Riptide was somebody commented that still, Ranger still doesn't have a weapon, and somebody then commented that no, Riptide is the weapon.
Yeah.
And it's like, that makes a ton of sense. Like, yeah, you just, instead of needing these big dominated attacks to deal damage like Azalea does, and there's a lot of things that help Azalea in this set.
Yeah, Azalea looks much better.
Fuck ton. I don't think the Azalea bounty is going to last very long. I think it'll be gone probably during RTN season at the which is the next time that we have a season worth of living legend points available. And so I think Azalea is going to come off the schneid then, because she's got a lot of tools. Riptide is his own tool. Like Big Daddy
He is a
Riptide,
tool.
Big Daddy Riptide is everything that you need to kill somebody or to make them regret trying to play, because he
You
can
know,
also just be hard fatigue if he wants to.
yeah, that's actually a great way to describe him, because when I look at Riptide, one, he looks like a tool.
Oh yeah.
And two, he definitely looks like the kind of guy who's listening to Tool.
Oh yeah.
So
He's out of the
I
Undertow
think
video.
that,
He was in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
this just all tracks with me now. I will say, even though Riptide has the potential to get a lot of chip damage in with the traps and definitely has strength and blocking out, I do think you still will need a certain amount of offense
Oh sure.
to get the job done. So I do also kind of like the way they balance that, where he's just not, stuck being defensive all the time. I think that players are going to have to learn what that good balance is, right? Find the right threshold. I think you're going to see a lot of folks at the start try to go hyper defensive and then realize that, like, yeah, you can block out, but you're still a ranger, right? So
Right.
you
At the
can't,
end of the day.
you can't just like hammer pass the way, Old Him or Bravo or whoever can.
You
So
have to
you're going to
close the
have to
game.
fire arrows.
My guess is it's endless arrow is the answer, but because that way you can just kind of keep firing the same arrow over and over and over again. But we did get some really cool arrows though. We did get so amplifying arrows is one of the more interesting ones, just because this is a Lexi arrow. In my mind, more than it's a Azalea or Riptide arrow. And the art just kind of also betrays that, because it looks like Aria art. And amplifying arrow is a yellow arrow that is a 0 for 2, blocks for 3. While amplifying arrow is face up in any zone, if it would gain attack, it gains that much +1. So with a Voltaire activation, this is 4 attack, not 2. And then anything else just keeps making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So this arrow, I think, is more of a Lexi arrow than anything else, and I'm glad that they put something like this in here. It's still going to be a really good finishing arrow in a go again sequence, no matter what. Pairs well with a lot of really good things.
Yeah, I like it both because of the Lexi love, but also because it's something that hints at potential future design space. I love whenever they give you just like a 1 or a 2 of a card where you think to yourself, oh man, there's totally ways that they could explore that further, right? So this right now, you're right. It's a Voltaire card essentially, or whatever bow you want to use to buff it. But like, let's be honest, it's a Voltaire card.
It's a Voltaire card.
But we could see later stuff that says, if there's an arrow face up in your arsenal, give it +3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. As like a non-attack. And then suddenly amplifying arrow has a lot more like neat ways to play with stuff. And it also, potentially as a ranger lets you shift around ways that you want to attack, because spoiler alert, ranger might not also like just fire arrows. Like there are some generics that in this set that when I saw them, I was like, man, I think I want to play them like even as a ranger, for example.
And the hybrids. Like there are hybrid cards in Ranger that are still quite good. Like Virulent Touch is quite good. That can go in the arsenal very easy with Riptide and then come straight out of it. Same thing with Death Touch. That is Assassin Ranger. That can come out of the arsenal and do some damage. There is so much of that type of stuff too. There are some great arrows. Like you look at something like Spire Sniping, which was spoiled by Mar, with one of the coolest videos I've ever seen. I don't know if you saw it, but she basically had painted the card as an extended art, and then it did a time lapse backwards then revealed it. Yeah, it was very, very cool. But this is when Spire Sniping is put or turned face up in an arsenal. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, then put them back in any order. That is Azalea's favorite thing in the world to do, is to opt arrows.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you mentioned Azalea, because again, when I was thinking about generics, right? Give and Take is a generic attack action that when it was revealed, I was like, there's a lot of decks that like this, but I almost feel like it's mandatory for Azalea. So Give and Take is it's a red pitch, costs 1, but it's a 3 attack that also blocks for 3. It naturally has Go Again, and it says whenever Give and Take is defended by an action card, you may put an action card with a cost less than given takes attack from your graveyard on top of your deck. So what
Mm-hmm.
this does is it lets you either, poke for 3 with go again, because they won't want to block it with a, something, or if they do block it, it has to be with equipment or a reaction. But if they do block it with an action card, then as Azalea, you can take one of your good arrows, put it on the top of your deck, and then because this has go again, well, now you can just activate Azalea to do your dominate shenanigans, right? So this is, I think, really good for her. And then on the other end of the spectrum, thinking about generics, Riptide, I think, will likely end up playing Down and Dirty.
Oh yeah.
Down and Dirty is a generic attack action, excuse me. Red Pitch costs 2 attacks for 6. It only defends for 2, but while it is in your arsenal, you may defend with it. So this is the kind of card where if you're Riptide and you are using his abilities, right, you can jam this into your arsenal to make it, potentially be something you save to swing for 6 later, or in a pinch you can also still just defend with it. It becomes kind of like an attack reaction for 2 that you get to play from your arsenal that's not an actual reaction. So I like the versatility of that card as well. And there so many good generics were actually in this
Oh, there's
set. Like, I
tons.
was kind of mind blown.
Yeah, so there's a lot of just like high quality things that are very focused on making sure that nothing gets out of hand. One of the better examples I have is like Melting Point, right? It's a 1 cost ranger action. Your next arrow attack this turn gets +4. I mean, that's a lot in and of itself. And if it has an aim counter, which is a thing that's not the hardest thing to do in this set necessarily. When this hits a hero, destroy a one-handed weapon they control with 1 base attack. That's a lot. We're
Yeah.
right back in it. The interplays in this are so cool. You have the laces, which are kind of the same as spikes, where it's blood dot, frailty, inertia, and arrows get +3, and then if they hit, you make one of the afflictions. That's also super cool. Like, they just did this so well in general. It's hard to comprehend how full the set feels. And by full, I don't mean like the number of cards in it, but the number of cards that are something I want to be doing that are in it.
Yeah. And that have interplay with other common situations, right? I think that goes back to what I said at the start of our show, which is that this is the first set, I feel like, where they designed it with the knowledge and the feedback that they have from all of the players, right? Because all of the cards in this set feel like they have addressed in some way, shape, or form something that comes up in common situations. Now, some of those might be common situations in draft or in limited, and others might be common situations in CC, but I don't look at any of these cards and go, I don't have any idea when this would matter, right? All of
Right.
these are very tightly, interwoven with the way we play Flesh and Blood as a game today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly true. They're like, you talk about the generics, and there's something that's at common, like cut down to size, which is a 2 for 6. It's a common, but when this hits a hero, if they have 4 or more cards in their hand, they discard a card. So it kind of just forces them to block it. They can't just eat the 6 because then they're discarding a card anyway.
Right. Either forced to block it because you're going to have to discard anyway, or expend a lot of valuable resources, right? Like, you might go, two block from equipment and then a sync from, your arsenal. But
yeah,
that's still like, that's a lot of resources that you spent just to keep your hands. So, like I said, dude, I could go on forever about the generics. I love Amnesia. I think
Wreck
Burdens
Havoc
of the
is
Past,
discount CNC.
Yeah, Wreck Havoc is discount CNC. Burdens of the Past, I think, is like your anti-Riptide and anti-Oldhim, and even like the hard control dash card. So if you're not familiar, Burdens of the Past is a generic action, and it blue pitch, 0 cost, blocks for 3. Says until end of turn, target hero can't play defense reaction cards with the same name as a card in their graveyard. And then as a bonus, if there are 10 or more defense reaction cards in their graveyard, draw a card, and then it has go again. So you either say, early in the game, hey, I don't want you to mess with me because, I've already seen a Sink and a Fate Foreseen, for example, and I don't want this next attack to be hit with those. Or late in the game against these heavy defensive builds, now this becomes a, hey, I'm turning off anything you might have left for free because I'm also drawing a card. And the fact that it's a blue pitch and blocks for 3 means that you can tech this in without too huge of a deck building cost.
Yeah. I probably didn't spend enough time thinking about the generics, but you're right. They're also
the generics are good.
good.
Do you want to know what my favorite generic is so far? We haven't even touched on that. Nope. It is, okay. Well, so they're not counting equipment, because I'm actually higher on Vambrace than I think some people are. But for me, it's Premeditate. But when I saw it, had a name come to mind, and then in a Discord I'm in, Brian Gottlieb said the exact same thing that I was thinking, which was Premeditate in my mind is Ponder Run, not Plunder Run. Ponder Run.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's god awful. Never do that again.
No, it's all it will ever be forever.
Please
Premeditate. It's a red card, costs 0, only blocks for 2, but it says the next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, create a Ponder token. The next attack action card you play from Arsenal this turn gets +3 attack. So very much like a red Plunder Run, except for instead of drawing the card immediately, you create a Ponder token. So it's, the slightly more fair version, but still very powerful. And the fact that it's not banned means it's already better than Plunder Run because you can play it. But that is going to see play. I can't imagine a world where that doesn't find a home.
No, that will 100% see play. There are so many cool things this card does. It interacts with my favorite card in the set so far, which is Death Touch, and makes it coming out of Arsenal super cool. A 9's a good number. 9 for 1.
Yeah.
You like 9 for 1s? I like 9 for 1s.
Yeah.
It does a ton of work. Yeah. It falls very close to the reading the card explains the card level of good. And that's super sick.
As a generic, that's outstanding.
Right. And you don't see those very often. The ones that exist are at that level, that are the reading the card explains the card generics, are Command and Conquer, Art of War, and Enlightened Strike. You read those, and reading the card explains the card, and that's how you know that they're expensive, because the text tells you.
Yep.
This is kind of close. I do need you to tell me why you're higher on Vambraces or Vambrace of Determination than the rest of the world.
I think that people are underestimating how important it is to be able to punch through Crown of Seeds. And that's what this does as a generic equipment. I'm not saying every class wants this, but there are definitely some classes, especially ones that have lackluster glove choices anyway, that could very much benefit from just loading up Vambrace of Determination. So if you're not familiar, Vambrace is a new legendary generic equipment in the arms slot. And it says once per turn attack reaction, you pay 1 pitch, and it says the next prevention effect that prevents physical damage this turn prevents 1 less of that damage. Then the extra line of text says when this defends, you may pay a pitch. If you do, it gains +1 armor and blade break. So there's a couple of really key interactions that I want to point out with this. First, it's an attack reaction. So if your opponent isn't lining up to use Crown of Seeds to prevent your physical, you don't have to invest in it right away. They have to activate their thing first, and then you can pay it. So you're not paying attacks because you think they might try to prevent your damage. You can just choose to activate this when it's relevant. Also, this goes through not just Crown of Seeds, but Oldhim's Earth ability as well. And so we all know that breakpoints matter. And yes, this is only one that you're forcing through, but if it's forcing Oldhim to continually try to overblock or get less value from things because they think you might activate it, especially if you have floating pitch, this becomes a lot more relevant. And it's great for, like, the first deck I thought of was the aggressive dash lists, because they don't really have good arms to begin with. They either take like the one defense or they take Goliath Gauntlet. But this is generic, and you could just absolutely bring it in, even if it's just for the Ultim matchup. But we're seeing more and more decks also get access to prevention stuff. We know Prism is coming later this year. So if you're thinking Spectral Shields, this is going to have a lot more potential there as well. And I love that it's, when it would prevent it, it prevents one less. So it does eat it up. It's not like it goes through and then you still have to deal with the floating crown protection. It prevents it, but then it prevents one less. But like, that part has popped. The other thing that I think is really neat is the +1 armor. You can just choose to not pay if you don't want to pop it, but still block with this. And that matters for, again, dash matchups, but on the other side of the table, right? So if they're playing the cards that are, you know, T-Bone, for example, and you have to block with an equipment, well, you can just toss this out. But if you don't pay, it doesn't gain the blade break. You don't obviously block any damage, but you satisfy the conditions and you can protect your tunic or protect whatever. Also, if you are a real like glutton for punishment and you like playing fatigue guardian matchups every now and then, Forged for War is a card that I have played more than once. And so like, if
Why?
you, because sometimes I like to punish my local armories, and I'll bring to Blitz, mind you, but I will bring a version of Oldhim to Blitz where I run Forge for War. And so I love cards like this where you can block with them and get the full block value, but they don't get any negatives. They don't break, they don't whatever. Because again, like if you play Forge for War, then you block with this. As long as I don't pay the extra, like this comes back. So there's a lot of really cool interactions with this, but as I'm just thinking about both current meta and where we're going, so the reintroduction of Prism, the recent semi-dominance of Oldhim between Crown of Seeds and his Earth reaction, we've been seeing cards like Oasis Respite pop up more and more. We've got another card in this set as well that is a damage
Peace
prevention
of
thing, and
mind.
Peace of Mind. So I think Vambrace is better than it looks, because it means that you take your opponents when they want to get to a clean break point, and just by having it on the table, you say you have to overblock or expect that I might pay and get through anyway, right? Like it forces them into uncertain situations just by being on the table. And as a generic piece of equipment, I think that is going to mean it sees play in some decks, again, where they have like really lackluster gloves.
Okay. Like I can listen to that and understand where you're going with it. It just seems very narrow as far as its use case. And
I would agree with you if Oldhim wasn't like a huge chunk of the meta, and there's not like a bunch of waifu diehard Prism players
oh
like
boy,
licking their chops for her to come back later this year. So I would agree with you, except it's going to be like half the field by the time August rolls around.
I'll get Chain back. It'll be fine. I'm not worried. It's totally reasonable. Maybe they'll unban. Seeds is already unbanned, right? Like, because it came off of the list with it was suspended until Old Chain left, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we can play Seeds of Agony. It'll be fine. Um, we know what Descendant Gustwave does now.
Yeah, and it's really good.
It's really good. Like, that's disgustingly good.
It's
We
way
got
better than I thought it was going to be. I thought that was going to be like the medium piece of the combo, and I was shocked it's this good.
I thought it was going to be a 0 for 3 that that only has go again if Surging Strike was the card played before it. I thought that was going to be the full text of the card. That is not the full text of the card. And Descendant Gustwave is very important because of the Dishonor chain. So a Descendant Gustwave's actual text is, and I'm pretty sure this is a rainbow, but they don't have it confirmed on here yet. But it's in the common slot. It is a 3, Go Again costs 1, blocks 2, so it's not the best in the world. But it has combo. If Surging Strike was the last attack this combat chain, this costs 1 less, so it becomes a 0. And has +2, so it becomes a 0 for 5 Go Again. It becomes a fully powered Ravenous Rabble. Oh shit.
And if it is a rainbow like we suspect, that means even the blue one, as long as it's in the combo chain, is still a 0 for 3 Go Again, which is very playable as is.
Yep. And
At
you
that
just
point,
have to have a Surging ahead of it. That's a lot.
That's a lot, especially when, again, you're considering that Dishonor combo and Bonds of Ancestry is going to follow it up. Where
cards like Be Like Water, where you can just call it, pay 1 and call it a Surging.
Yeah.
And then 0 for 5 Go Again them. Like, then Be Like Water and Descendant are both commons, and we know Surging is in the set as well. Like, oh boy. We got a little bit of the Twin Twisters portion of the show here, and the head jab shots. The Twin Twisters one is super interesting to me because Twin Twisters is a 1 for 3 that Go Again with choose 1. Twin Twisters has when this hits your next attack this combat chain gains +1, or Twin Twisters gains +1. The second part of this is Spinning Wheel Kick, which this thing is fun as hell because it's combo of Twin Twisters or Spinning Wheel Kick. So one before it, it's a 1 for 4 Go Again. If Twin Twisters or Spinning Heel Kick was the last attack this combat chain, this has +1, and when this hits, put on the bottom of its owner's deck. Yeah. So, chaining Spinning Wheel Kicks sounds like a ton of fun, and I'm excited to be a part of that. And then for the fuck of it, we get Cyclone Roundhouse, which is some dipshit tomfuckery if I've ever heard of it. It's a 2 for 5, blocks for 3. We got back to blocking for 3, thank God. Combo, if Spinning Wheel Kick was the last attack this combat chain, this has, at the beginning of the reaction step, banish a random defending card from each chain link. Each chain link. That shit gets banished. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have some fun with this bullshit. This is some nonsense.
I am actually I'm waiting for this to open up into new shenanigans when the next set comes out and we get Chain back, and then Levia potentially get some support, because this has the potential to either give them more blood debt to kill them quicker, especially with the Dishonor chain against a Levia, for example. Excuse me, Levia. I know Ethan is cringing somewhere. Levia.
So is Tommy. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
All the stands are crying.
But also like doing it against the chain, and then him going like, oh yeah, that sucks, except for I wanted to have those banished, right? Like there's some interplay there coming later this year. You
gave me a pot of greed. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me.
That I'm looking forward to. I also want to mention, since we're on the Twin Twisters thing, back heel kick is really interesting to me as well, because this is like the finisher if you opt to go multiple Twin Twisters, in my mind. Because Twin Twisters, it can give itself +1, or it can give the next attack this combat chain +1. So if you have Twin Twisters, like you pitch a blue and you do those as your 3 attacks, you could give the first and the second buffs itself, but then the third you could give it to your next attack, and then from your arsenal, bam, back heel kick. So that's a 0 for 3 that blocks for 3, but its combo says if Twin Twisters was the last attack this combat chain, this has, if back heel kick would gain attack power, instead it gains that much +1. So the idea is you use the Twin Twisters to pay it forward, and then it gets doubled because of back heel kick, right? So it becomes a 0 for 5. It's kind of like, the lava burst of the Twin Twisters chain.
Yeah, and if this is a rainbow, like I think it will be, then the yellow costs 2, and then you can short and sharp that one and make it biggers. And I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 0, so if it is a rainbow, it is a 0 blue that blocks for 3, which is very important, as we all know. The head jab line is also just, again, kind of fun, just randomly entertaining, because you get head jab, which everybody knows is just straight up 0 for 4 go again. There's not a whole lot to head jab and in red. Blocks for 2. Then you get recoil, where if head jab was the last attack, this combat chain, this has, when this hits a hero, they put a card from their hand on top of their deck. And so that becomes a 0 for 3. Well, that sucks. Or you
Mm-hmm.
have 1-2 punch, which is comboing with head jab. It's another 0 for 3 that blocks for 3. If head jab was the last attack this combat chain, this has, when this hits a hero, deal 2 damage to them. Pop.
Yeah, what I really like about recoil and 1-2 punch is that they are, in my opinion, these are the ones that are leaning into the Katsu hero power, especially for
Yeah.
limited as well, because this is just a rare for recoil and a common for 1-2 punch. But the fact that these are 0 costs means that you can pitch these if they're stuck in your hand to, use or kind of pay for the Katsu hero power. But also because these have combo, you can search for these too. So when you lead off with these head jabs, then you get potential like immediate payoffs. I also really like that there's a number of cards in this set that are seemingly just 2-card combos. And I actually like that 1-2 punch is literally meant to be head jab
1-2.
and then this 1-2. But that was one of the things that I felt that Ninja needed, because when you have, don't get me wrong, the big combos are satisfying, right? Nobody doesn't enjoy playing a 4-card combo, right?
Surging,
but when you have
Mugenshi Lord, let's go.
Yeah. But when you have you're dedicated to those and you can't piece that combo together, the rest of it feels really lackluster. So giving Ninja access to the ability to keep a 2-card hand and still have like a satisfying combo interaction, I think is really important to the class. And so I liked that they were trying to do that more with this set.
We also got 2 like super fucking cool specializations. I'm gonna actually go with the one that I don't like as much first, and it's gonna sound really weird. But I don't like the Katsu one as much. It's called Visit the Floating Dojo. It's a 0 cost blue pitch, so it's checking 2 boxes, but it's a ninja instant, so it doesn't have any block value, which makes my heart hurt. The text is Katsu specialization. You may only have this in your deck if your hero is Katsu. Put a Surging Strike and a card with combo from your graveyard on the top and or bottom of your deck. So this card actually does a lot, especially for like the Surging Whelming line in general, or the Surging, I guess we just call it the Gust Wave line now, right? Because
basically.
it's a 2-way go. Because putting Lord of Winds back in your deck to go do more Lord of Wind bullshit is quite good, as is putting more Bonds of Ancestry back in your deck to do more Bonds of Ancestry bullshit or Dishonor bullshit or whatever your choice of bullshit is. It's quite good, and you get to do it in a way that allows you to then draw into your combo. So it kind of gives you the ability to sort of pseudo tutor from your graveyard and make things right, and you don't require a Surging to do it. So it doesn't have 2 targets. It has put A and A. So you can, if you don't have a Surging, but you do have a card with combo that you need back, you can actually do that, and it's totally reasonable, and it works. So this does do quite a bit. But overall, I okay, the art's gorgeous. But overall,
the art is great.
I think that it could have, there could have been something a little bit better that and then that might just be the Katsu stand to me that wants something a little bit more broken, but at the same time, this is a very serviceable card for a specialization.
It's very serviceable, and I think you're right. I think normally when we think of specializations, we think about cards that almost like define the hero. This, to me, isn't on par with Crippling Crush, for example, right? Or like
Or
Red
even Lord
Ledger,
of Wind.
or Lord of Wind. But this, to me, when I saw this was Katsu's Showtime. As somebody who's played a lot of Bravo, Showtime is also a specialization, and I think it kind of gets forgotten about, but it's very serviceable. It does all the things Bravo wants it to do, but it's not necessarily like your highlight reel play. This is kind of like Showtime And the reason that I made that association very quickly for me is that Showtime is oftentimes best played turn 0. And I think that this card has the potential to be really good. And it might be something you only bring in if you know you're going second, because it allows you to potentially on turn 0 block with cards that you would normally want to keep just to stave off damage, and then as an instant put them right back, and then you draw your cards right back.
Yeah,
Like
and
that's what I was thinking about. Like you can block with a Surging Strike and a card with combo, and those are normally likely cards that you would have wanted to have kept anyway, but instead of leaking that damage early, you can do that, and then you're just like, oh, as an instant, I pop them back up and refill my hand, right? Like there's obviously more uses than that, but to me it was very similar to like the Showtime thing, where with Showtime you play at turn 0 to set yourself up. This felt similarly, but instead it's like
yeah.
on the defensive side of turn 0.
Yeah, you could definitely also have a line later in the game where it's like, okay, I've got them low, I'm going to block out this turn, and then I'm going to visit at the end of their turn, put the 2 cards on top I know I need to start the line, and then I should be able to take whatever attack they have next turn and then turn around and combo them. Like that is also a thing that this card can do. It's very
Yeah.
good for setting up. I think that Showtime analogy is actually perfect.
It's also it's a really good card as well, that you don't, in my opinion, feel bad about discarding for Katsu's hero power. Like when you think
No.
about all the stuff Katsu wants to do, right? It is a blue pitch. It costs 0, so it helps with the Kadachis, but it also costs 0. So again, if you don't want to put something back and you're doing your combo thing, then like you just tutor with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's what you do. I feel like that is 100%. That makes a ton of sense. At least to me. And again, I do want to very much so compliment you on the Showtime analogy, because I also do forget that Showtime is a Bravo specialization.
Yeah.
Now Showtime is better than this because it blocks for 3, but that's not the point. It does the same thing. It's a setup card for the next turn, and this is doing the same thing. And I don't play a ton of Bravo, but even I have used a Showtime to set up a get 'em dead next turn, and it feels great when you do it.
Yeah.
Like you feel like king of the world. This is probably going to be the same thing where it's like, okay, they don't even know they're dead, so this is now funny. Like I'm entertaining myself at this point.
Well, yeah, and especially because this is an instant, right? So you can do this, after they've done whatever they're doing on their turn. If you have the ability and you're in a good position, you're like, okay, at the end of your turn, I will visit the floating dojo, and I'm going to put Surging Strike and Descendant Gust Wave on the top of my deck. And so now, you're likely taking, or at least having to deal with at least 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just putting those 2 cards on the top, you're like, oh God, that's 10. If they have a blue pitch, that's 11 counting a Kadachi.
Yeah.
And whatever else is coming.
Like if
right?
you just had this thing hiding in your arsenal and you had yourself a turn that ate their hand, and then it's like, okay, end of turn, play this, put these 2 back on the top of my deck, draw pass, and they're sitting there staring at their 1 card or 0 card hand going, I have to deal with this a fucking again.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. I like that. You may have turned me a little bit on this one. I think
like it's not a superstar, but it's definitely, I think, got a role.
It's got a role. I think that that's important. Silverwind Shuriken does not. I'm going to let that one go. That does not have a role. You're a blue that you're the same stat line as Visit the Floating Dojo, but you're an item with no go again, and you have to destroy it to give a single card with combo +1. Get the fuck out of here.
So here's my stance on this one. The fact that this very specifically is not just an item, but a Shuriken item, tells me that if it's not in this set at some point in the future, just like when I saw Flick Knives, this will have some other interaction that supports it. There's going to be something that either let you put these into play, tutor them, get them back from your discard pile, something, right? Like this, because this is an item, so you got to play it, and it doesn't have go again. Granted, like you got a lot of go again in ninja, so you can just like end your turn with this, but like this, it just, again, because they put the tag on it, it could have just been an item, but because they specifically called this out, it tells me there will be something that embraces this in the future.
So you think this is the case of like traps, where they gave us a thing in crew that said traps, and
Yep.
they just happened to give us the shittiest versions, and then improved it later, and then gave us good ones.
Yes, very much so. Or even akin to like we saw Sandscour Great Bow, and then we got like a couple of arrows with aim counters, but we
Oh,
were like, okay,
we have a lot more
sure, I
now.
guess. But now we have a lot more. Yes. So if it's not in this set, again, I see that tag and they did that with purpose, right? So that just tells me we're going to get something. If it's not in this set with some of the unrevealed cards, because we don't have the whole set yet.
No,
But if it's not in this set, it'll be in the future and a supplemental or something.
Charmer. This card's dog shit. Like
Right now, absolutely.
I, I feel existential dread knowing that I'm gonna open 5 of these fucking things, and that's
It
not the
kind of
dread.
looks.
That's
Listen,
not the dread.
it's an item, and sometimes we get items in cold foil, and this would look outstanding in cold foil. The art is great.
You're right. It would. The dread is not opening 5 of them. The dread is the fact that to be a completionist, I have to keep 3 of them. That's the fucking dread. I want to set this bitch on fire. It just doesn't.
A flaming shuriken would
Bad.
be so awesome.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Actually, there is a card that I do think is very cool, and that is Wander with Purpose. This is the Benji specialization in this set, and to me, this is not specifically great in limited or in outsiders in the vacuum. But holy shit, is this good for Benji?
This is good for Benji, but also, hear me out, I adore this card from a thematic flavor standpoint because he's supposed to be the apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And so he doesn't have the hero power, but he gets this one shot. Like I get to do what Katsu does as like I'm learning from him sort of thing. I just adore this card.
This card is everything that you want in like flavor and lore and everything else.
The art is awesome.
The art is great.
It's got a dog.
It does have a dog. I love dogs. I love dags. It looks.
He's a good boy.
He's the goodest of boys. Don't you insult him by merely calling him a good boy. That's the goodest of boys. But this card is a 0 for 2, so unblockable in Benji. Blocks for 3. It's a yellow pitch, so decent. Benji specialization, and it's literally, if this hits, Benji gets Katsu's ability 1 time. You get to discard a card with cost 0. If you do, search your deck for a card with combo, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this turn. That is the coolest flavor to me that we have seen in this game yet. That's just dope. Like,
yeah.
Never mind that it can go get cool shit. That's not the point. It's like dope because of the story behind it. Yeah, Benji is the learner. He's the apprentice to the master, and he finally figures out how to do the thing that his master always does. And it's just and you look at the art, and it's Benji alone wandering the streets. Katsu's the wanderer. Wander with purpose is what Katsu does. It's just such a I love that.
Yeah.
It's a story in one card, and when you can pull that off, it is so fucking cool.
Also, another thing that I don't think we've like properly touched on, but one of the things I loved about this set in particular as well is that the ninja cards have like the new border or the different border, the wrapping. It kind of looks like what you would see on the hilt of a katana or a wakizashi, right? It doesn't have, the more clouded, traditional Katsu stuff. And I really like
border.
it. Yeah, because it just fits this set so well, but still feels very ninja, right?
Yeah.
Big fan of that.
No, there's very few things in this set that I don't think that they have absolutely nailed. It almost feels like we're playing a new game, and for me, that's what a draftable set should do. Is it should make you look at things from a different angle. It should make you reevaluate the way that you look at cards, the way that you maybe Shuriken, a Silverwind Shuriken isn't shit. I mean, it is. It's shit.
I'm
But
telling you, it's only shit right now.
okay. Well,
I have faith.
at episode 100 or so, we'll revisit Silverwind Shuriken, and it'll still be shit. There may be other Shurikens that aren't shit. This one will still be shit. I'm more than happy to put a pin in that one for 34 weeks or whatever, and then come back to it and see, is this still shit? Like,
We'll
I'm
come
totally
back to
fine
it.
with that.
We'll come back to it in the same episode that we revisit ASMR and your research.
I haven't
Don't think
started.
I've forgotten.
I
don't think I have forgotten.
I'm not ready for that rabbit hole. I'm really not. Like, I started. Okay, so I did start, and the first thing I countered was like an audio thing of somebody eating, and I was just like, why would somebody fucking voluntarily listen to this? And I'm like, this is not soothing. This isn't pleasant. Who does this shit? And then the next one was of a person like on loop taking bong rips. And I'm like, okay, well, that's actually kind of relaxing. I'm kind of okay with that one. So I'm starting to understand it. At the same time, it is not a safely Googleable thing, by the way. Not even remotely.
Yeah, it's going to get you on a few lists.
Oof. We incognito browsers and VPNs exist for reasons, and it's to research ASMR. Overall, like, I know we're missing a lot. We've seen all the legendaries, and I'm only in love with really two of them. But the two that I'm in love with are like damn near beyond, like, it's
really only two. I'm in love with three.
The flick knives I'm yet to be in love with.
Oh, it's a hit with me. So here's the thing, like, even if I don't end up playing it, it's a hit with me because of the flavor.
Like, the flavor is amazing.
It knocks it out of the park for me in terms of like me seeing it and going, that's really fucking cool. Like,
yeah, the flavors got me lusting. That's what the flavors got me doing.
Dude, we didn't even mention though, like, the common counterpoint is also, I think, really cool. I thought Blade Cuff was awesome.
It is awesome. Yes, Blade Cuff is awesome. The fact that they kind of did that and gave us, you know, the training wheels versions of some of these at common is awesome. It's a fantastic idea, and I love it. Like I said, flick knives, I think I'm in lust with. If I'm on fuck, marry, kill, I'm gonna fuck some flick knives. I'm marrying Redback Shroud though. Like, I'm putting a ring on that one. And I'm probably killing Van Braces. I'm not convinced. But playing fuck, marry, kill with equipment is
awesome.
Yeah, playing fuck, marry, kill with equipment in a card game is also just the nerdiest thing you can possibly think of. I'm going to. I do love both of the Ranger pieces. Trench of Sunken Treasure, I think, is an A. But it's not an A plus, but it's an A.
I think instead of fuck, marry, kill, it would be equip, carry, sell. So what do you keep on you? What are you actually wearing? And what are you selling when you get back to town?
Simple. This is the easiest thing you've ever asked me to do. We are carrying the Redback Shroud. We are equipping the trench because I look dope in a long coat. And we are 100% selling some Van Braces. I don't need that wristy shit. So that's where I'm at. Where are you at? Where are you at? Equip, carry, sell.
So I mean, I'm equipping the Redback Shroud because it makes my cleavage look amazing.
You also have that slender figure. Like, you can get away with that shit.
Well, I mean, I got to work on it. I put on put on some weight recently. We got to get back into it. I'm probably carrying the Trench of Sunken Treasure, if anything, just because it's also made of sunken treasure. So that makes me almost want to sell it. I'm not going to be on like
If
not
it's
going to
gonna
be
buy a house,
on
I mean,
it yet,
shit.
but
Like,
like yeah, like it's it's a trench of sunken and treasure. And then yeah, like I would sell the Van Braces. Like I said, I think I'm higher on it than most people, but I do think it's probably the weakest legendary that we've seen so far from the set. But that's just because I'm so high on the other ones. But I've heard some people say it was like literally the worst legendary ever printed for this
oof.
game, and I was like,
Ghostly
that's a
touch
stretch.
exists,
I was like,
so
this is a playable generic equipment. I think the problem is we kind of got spoiled because we're used to like you get generic and it's tunic, it's skull cap, it's crown of providence, and so people are like, if it's not those, then it must be awful.
yeah.
But like those are iconic for a reason. I think that this is more in line with what your legendary generics should be or should feel like. But I think that this again will potentially find a home just based on the way the meta has been and where I think it might be going when Prism comes back.
It has text, and things with text a lot of times find use. Like, I get that. But I will repeat that Ghostly Touch also has text. Um, I will say this: if Flick Knives had Battle Worn, man, I'm taking that to meet. I'm taking that home to meet mom. Like,
Yeah, if it had Battle Worn,
woo,
like, oh man,
then
like if it had Battle Worn and I could pay 2 silver to get it back,
oh my
then
god, the entire assassin kit. If the entire assassin kit was Battle Worn, that would be absurd. Like, it already feels kind of pushed that 3 of your pieces are battle worn and repurchasable. If all of it was, that would just start turning into
you know,
a fucking
you want to
nightmare.
know, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. The card that has been slowly like rising up in value in the back of my mind as of late, as I've seen more and more assassin stuff and thinking about the equipment, because all of the equipment you can get it back, but it's all also like really good. So like you kind of want to use them and then also keep getting them back. And yes, you can do that with contracts, but if you've played any amount of at least the existing Arachnes, you know that you still usually have to like make some decisions about what to prioritize when you get stuff back. Um, Payday has been like rising
Oh, that's
in my
interesting.
mind because it's still a blue pitch, blocks for 3. But now that we know we're going to be at least running 3 pieces of equipment that you potentially want to get back, there's a bit more premium on getting the silver. And like I said, at a minimum, it's still a blue pitch that blocks for 3. So like Payday's been slowly climbing back into my deck lists, I think.
Yeah. I don't know why my echo decided that it was the right time to just say something right there, but that was interesting. Um, it's
Amazon, play
nope,
ASMR
nope,
playlist.
nope, nope, nope. You see, this is in my headphones because I'm
Yeah, I
smarter
know.
than that. I did
I
have a
know.
friend that derail all of a sudden. That used to do that when he walked out of places. He was actually it was a hard check to find out that uh, if you had the prime one click turned on,
Yeah. Well,
because he would just say, "Hey, purchase," and then say a thing while he's
yeah.
walking out the
Well,
door.
I was trying, I didn't know just on the off chance that you had it outside of your headphones. So that's why I said Amazon instead of the
Right, right.
actual name. I was, I wanted the joke to get across, but I didn't want to actually play something. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I have done similar things.
what a dick. So here's the fucked part. We're an hour and 48 minutes into the show and we just got through section A.
Yeah.
God damn it.
But the rest, I think we can get through relatively quickly.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
You're right. You're right.
we can talk about I think these deeper. So like I think a bunch of these we can say like these were a thing, and then if there are less things to talk about next week, then we can revisit them and dive deeper. But even
Yeah.
just saying like, hey, these things also happened, go check them out is probably enough.
Yeah, you're probably right. We do have the next supplemental set that was announced in ICV2. It's going to be called Dusk Till Dawn, which honestly, when somebody sent me the screenshot of the ad in ICV2, because it's a magazine, nobody uses a fucking magazine anymore. And so I thought that they were sending me a picture of an old Dust Till Dawn card game, which, you know, the Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino movie. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't play that game, but if I would have seen it, I would have played the fuck out of that game. That movie is the shit.
Yeah, the cold foil extended art Salma Hayek is like $400.
I believe you. However, I want the Harvey Keitel. Um, and but no, this is the next Flesh and Blood supplemental set. It'll be coming out in July. It is.
Legendary Dick Gun equipment.
Yeah, his name's Sex Machine.
Yeah, I know.
Um, the that also would be fantastic. Do you think do you think that the RV would be a piece of equipment, or I mean, yeah, never mind. Um, it's light and shadow themed, so we're going back to Demonastery versus Solana, and the return of Prism and Chain is alluded to in the article. Obviously, will not be the same abilities in
Yeah,
Prism and
there'll
Chain.
be new versions, but this, I mean, isn't too much of a shock. We have known
No.
for a while because James said that, you know, we were going to get new versions of them, but I'm excited that we have it, you know, timetabled now, right? So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, confirmed, right?
yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it feels good to know that it's coming and know when it's coming. Prices have started to reflect that, and honestly started to reflect that before that came out. So somebody had a copy of the publication beforehand and started buying things up. So if you have not purchased your Carrion Husks or um, Phantasmal
Library.
Footsteps or Libraries,
Yeah, I don't own
those.
a library or footsteps. So, but I did already own a husk. I was a chain guy for a while, so I'm good there.
Well, I do have. You're in luck. I do have 3 cold foil Footsteps. They are only up to $400.
Only.
Uh, don't ask. I mean, I've opened 4 cold foil Footsteps. I sold one and then kept one to play with, and then opened 2 more. So
All
I
right.
have 3.
So I think I own 3 legends from Monarch, but I have never opened any legend or fabled from Monarch. Just
Yeah.
been incredibly unlucky. Well, same thing. Welcome to Rathe. I have opened, I think, 11 or 12 boxes of Welcome to Rathe at this
That's
point, and
it.
only opened plating.
I've opened a lot of Welcome to Wraith, like a fucking ton, and I've opened all of the legendaries multiple times at this point outside of Tunic. I've only ever opened the. Nope, I've opened 2 Tunics. Never mind. Um, and then for Monarch, I have opened Cold Foil Footsteps, Cold Foil uh, Stubbies, Cold Foil Ironhide Gauntlets, Ironhide Legs. The only legendary Cold Foil I don't own out of this set is Vestige of Soul. But I have the rest. So the Valiant Dynamos and Carrion Husk and Phantasmal Footsteps.
Yeah, I only have the
and Eclipse and Doomsday.
rain. Yeah, I have the rainbow foil versions, but
Fucking pleb.
yeah, I know.
I'm
I
trying to
play
get
too many
my.
games.
Yeah, I get it. As I playtest Alpha Clash on Mondays and playtesting the second set of a game that hasn't released the first set yet. It's fairly interesting. I've never done that before, so it's a very interesting experience just overall. We also got some lore that was quite interesting on the mothership. We had 2 pieces that came up. The first one was Shiana reporting back to Solana and telling them about what goes on in Volcor. I'm not going to summarize the whole story, but you should read it. It's very good. And it definitely plays into a lot of what's happening right now, story wise, as far as the lore of Wraith goes. The second one deals with Azuri and her nest, and this one is not for the faint of heart. It is gruesome and bloody as fuck, and I
I mean,
absolutely love it. It
you're
is.
dealing with assassins,
Whew,
so
it is right up my alley. They even describe a riptide trap fucking somebody up, and it's like that's yep, I'm in. Like, okay, I signed up for this. It is gruesome, but it also plays into the same storyline. They both are in reference to the assassination of the Emperor Volcor at points. So that's going to become a crux point, I think, in the story. And so if the lore or the story are important to you, definitely go read those. One, they are pretty well, like, not pretty, they're very well written, and they're a fairly quick read, but they have a ton of cool things in them. I'm a Shiana person, randomly enough, and so I like anytime that she's around doing things. So I very much so enjoyed that. The next thing, I'm zooming through some of these because I'm not going to get this done in under 2 hours, but we can come at least as close as humanly possible. The Realms Brawl weekend in Chicago is coming up soon. I believe from recording, it is 3 weeks from us talking right now. Uh, Tickets are still available. I believe you've missed the early bird window as of right now. However, tickets are still available to sign up. Remember, it is a 5K classic constructed tournament with outsiders legal, and it'll be because it's a release weekend of the set. There will be product on hand. I do believe that both MinMax and the Realm are opening a significant amount of product to make sure singles are available so that people can purchase and not be left out in the cold. It is also a gold foil PTI event. So the winner of the brawl not only will receive the cash monies, but will also receive the gold foil as well as a PTI. So it is everything we want and more in a event that is not a battle hardened or calling. So if you're not already looking to attend, I would highly recommend it. I will be there. Darick will be there. Tannen Grace will be there, but in the form of Darick, and a host of others. So it's one worth making. I promise you. Just show up, and if you do, please find me and say hello. And Darick, you won't be able to pick Darick out of a crowd, but if you find me, I will take you to Darick, and then you can say
or
hello.
or they can find you and then just call you me,
Or call me you. Yeah, that while we're standing next to each other. That's the one that bothers me the most of all the fucking situations of you being called, not you. It's when you were standing next to me and I was called you. We're not the same. I'm two of you. It doesn't make sense. And we don't sound alike at all. Like,
well,
all right, all right. Also, the reservations for the battleship, that is the Flesh and Blood cruise ship, that is a thing that is happening, are also alive on the Realms website. We'll put the link in the show notes. So reservation windows are open for deposits. If you intend on going, just put a deposit down. I believe it's like $100 for the half cabin. I could be wrong, so do not quote me, but that'll reserve your spot on the ship, and then that is for next January, or this coming January. So we're still quite a ways away, but getting that locked in for people is super important, just to make sure that everything's taken care of on the ship. Your price does include your lodging, your food, and then there are packages to purchase for internet and booze if that's a thing you're into. If you like the internet and if you like booze, I like one of these things, I tolerate the other. Goddamn, still so close to that 2 hours, and I'm got 2 listener questions. Okay, we're not gonna give these short shrift though, because I think these are important ones. The first one's from Big Lou. I think we can all agree the backup location for the Calling Auckland was a major upgrade from your standard convention center. What other uncommon locations, such as theaters, stadiums, or concert halls, would you like to see used for Calling's PT's worlds in the future? Darick?
so my initial like practical answer would be something like the Renaissance Center here in Detroit, just because I know for a fact you can do events there. They used to do Magic events there, Grand Prix and like our states tournaments back when they used to do those. And most people just don't think of that as like a rentable spot. But like if I'm thinking about an uncommon one, it's not even options that are on that list. For me personally, I would love to attend an event that takes place either inside an aquarium or a zoo.
Okay. Um, Do
Like,
the
do
lower
you,
tables have to play close to the monkey cages so they have shit thrown at them the entire time?
well, so a lot of zoos will still have spaces for events anyway. So I just like the idea of like you still play at your designated space, and maybe it's even still in something like a reptile house or whatever, because a lot of zoos have those other buildings, right? But like you play at the designated space. But I just love the idea of, hey, your round's over, get up and like go walk around, and you can still talk to people, still be social, do all the things you do at these that are awesome with the community, but you stretch your legs, you get to see some cool animals. Most of these places also have food available, so I'm sure that even if you can't do that, maybe you cater something in. But I just really like the idea of uh, something where the ambience is different. You hear the animal noises, you get to go see cool stuff. I love the idea of doing it like inside an aquarium. Yeah, I just that to me would be fun, and I'd be like even more into it if it was coinciding with a set that fit the theme, right? Like if we ever get
Sure.
a nautical based set or something that has to deal with like pirates or harbors or docks or whatever, then you just do that at the aquarium and you go all in on it. Like I think that'd be really cool.
Or a cruise ship. Yeah, that would work
Or a
too.
cruise ship. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I the one so like I always wanted to do an event on an actual like oil platform, like in the middle of the ocean, on like you're on the deck of this thing and you're having to deal with the elements and all of that alongside keeping your mental focus to play the game. Variations of that, so chess boxing, and so occurring in
so
a ring, fab, and then throw hands, and
so
then more fab.
so this is what you want, right? It's you, a judge, and your opponent, and the table, and you 3 2 1 go, and you skydive out with cards on the table as you're descending, and you got to play, and you either win by killing your opponent, fatiguing them, or whoever pops their parachute first. So it's also a game of chicken.
Okay, yeah, I'd play that. Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, I would do that. That sounds great. Um, that seems fun to me. But those types of things sound fun to me. Like creating a layer of difficulty that is outside of the same skill set that the event would require. I know that's not great for like worlds or callings or PTI events or shit
Sure.
like
But
that.
the spectacle is fun.
But the spectacle is incredible. We also had discussed doing like a pro wrestling style one. That was a conversation that we had. The first like real brawl event, I believe, with Flake there and you there. Like we'd gotten to that
Yeah.
conversation about doing with like pro
Playing
wrestling
in an
style
actual
episodes.
ring
Yeah,
and
and then doing cutting promos on people
cutting
and
promos, having entrance
right,
music.
the
Yeah, the
whole
whole thing.
nine.
Yeah, I'm in. I
And
still
then
think that's a
I think
fun
it's a
idea.
fucking amazing idea. And then having like kind of having it like on pay-per-view, but then there's a limited number of seats in the arena so people can cheer and shit and hold up signs or whatever. Have Michael Hamilton come out as literally the angel of death, like however we need this to work. That is like I like spectacle, and I like when something challenges in multiple ways. So that's where I would go with it. I know that's not exactly in line with the question, but at the same time, I think that that's where I am with it. The last one's from Iron Mag 44. He says,
Mhm.
"Hey Logan and Charcoal, what do we think the Fabled is going to be from this set? We thinking a gem like Heart or Eye, or are we thinking a location in the pits like the headquarters of the Spider Assassins? Also, if it is a gem, I think it'd be busted as fuck and really cool if you pitch it for 3 resources and it gives the opponent one of the new token ailments. Holy shit. Of the dealer's choice. Would that be too broken? Yes."
Yes.
We're going to answer the second question first. Yes.
Yes.
What the
Um,
fuck?
oh, I pitch to start my combo chain and you just get a free blood rot. Like,
Or an inertia. Just
I mean, yeah, there's lots of them, but I just standard like being able to give a blood rot is already really busted. Like
yeah.
that, because that is, in my opinion, um as impactful, if not more impactful than Heart of Findall, because you're conditionally gaining 1 life versus always taxing your opponent either 3 resources or 2
2
health,
life.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's pretty big.
So what do you think it's going to be?
I don't. I have honestly no idea what it's going to be, but I can tell you what I hope it is. I hope it is not a gem or a location. I hope that they continue what they did
I
with
think it's
Command and
Art of War.
Conquer.
I think it's Art of War.
And I, the only reason I don't think it's going to be Art of War, even though it would potentially fit, is just like thematically, I think it might be the wrong set, because they keep saying like this is a kind of a go back to the meat and potatoes of Welcome to Wrath, and so I'm personally kind of hoping that it's Enlightened Strike. I hope that it's a fabled version of Enlightened Strike. But the main reason that I just want to make sure that I say this is that um, I've said it before in the past that when you have playable fables become staples in decks, then it can start to price people out. And even if it doesn't uh, truly matter in the deck, and it creates that illusion of it, right? So we're already kind of seeing that reflected. Heart prices are up. With the Prism announcement, like we're seeing libraries and stuff go back up. In my opinion, it's only a matter of time before I skyrockets, because that's a very playable one in a number of decks. And if Azalea becomes an actual meta choice, the opt is really important for her. It's always been important for Kano, right? So there's a number of fables that already exist that are um, borderline staples for certain decks, and we're seeing prices reflect that. And so nobody feels good about only having $400 versions of cards playable. And I understand fables are meant to be special, but I really liked what they did with Command and Conquer, and they said, okay, we're going to take these kind of iconic staple majestics or whatever and then give you a chase version so that the rest of the stuff can still be obtainable. So I hope it's like I could see Art of War for sure, or
like
Enlightened Strike, but I hope it's something like that personally.
They could just really fuck with us and make it surgical extraction. Um,
Hey,
Oompa
so
reprint right
the
on
only
the
reason I
backs.
don't, yeah, I was gonna say the only reason I don't think it's that is because
No, we know it's
this
not.
this would have had to been like at the printer beforehand
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. So
However, that'd be super funny.
it would be funny.
Um, so the last thing of little housekeeping here is the merch store is still live. The link will be in the show notes. So if you wanted some Flesh and Pod merchandise, you can go there and purchase it from our friends at Very Good Embroidery. That is, it's in the show notes. I'm not spelling that out again. Well, we made it. We're 2 hours and 7 minutes in. So let's thank our patrons. For our associate producers, we have Andy and Kenny. For our executive producers, we have Chris W., Nick D., Josh, Popo Mike, Ed, May, Philip, and Taylor. If you're interested in our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link will also be in the show notes. There are 4 levels to explore, so please take a look and see what we have to offer there. I am still a lazy bitch, but not that. I'm just too busy. And have not made any changes to the Patreon rewards. Once I get through March, I will make sure that is done. But March is just so fucking full. You can always contact us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. I'm usually the person checking that email. So actually, I think I'm the only person now that checks that email. So it'll probably be me talking shit back to you, but you go ahead and drop a line there if you want to. You can also find us on Twitter at FleshPod. You can also find us in our Discord. That link is also in the show notes. Also, we're available on all platforms. So we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, whatever that is. And we're also on YouTube. We have an embarrassing low number of YouTube subscribers. So we'll make sure to put that link in the show notes. So if you feel like just going in and liking and subscribing, that would be fan-fucking-tastic. It makes me look less of a chump when my wife's Fallout 4 gameplay channel has more subscribers than this show. So
I'm pretty sure that even I have more, and people don't even know who I am.
they have no idea who you are. But also, if you're in the mood on your Apple and your Spotify's of the world, please give us 5 stars and let us know that you love us. And if you don't love us, tell us why. And at which point, all complaints will still go to Flesh and Pod Legal, which is the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. Darick, where can they find you?
At the Tanning Grace. No. Wait. Charmer. So on Twitter, I am that Charmer, and then everywhere else, I'm basically just Charmer, or that Charmer. It kind of depends on the thing, but basically Twitch and YouTube, I'm Charmer, Charm3R. Twitter, I'm that Charmer. TikTok, I'm that Charmer. Instagram, I'm that Charmer. I don't know. Basically,
It sounds
just
like you're
search for
more that
Darick.
charmer than charmer.
Listen, it is because those platforms don't want to give me the dead accounts, despite me doing business as Charmer. I own charmer.com. That's the best way to find me, honestly. Just go to charmer.com, charm3r.com, and then it links to all of my other stuff. I even have a Discord server. Logan was like, "You have a Discord server?" I was like, "Yeah, I even talk about Flesh and Blood there. I talk about Marvel Snap there. I do all sorts of stuff." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's been there forever." But
I'm still not in that
yeah,
server.
charmer.com, easiest way to find my stuff. Or don't. I'm not your dad.
I mean, that'd be a
Just
lot.
because I'm your daddy doesn't mean I'm your dad.
It's facts, big facts. Your kids are Iron Man and Nomad, so there is that. I think that confused the shit out of some people in the Discord, and I was dying laughing because I got it, like I understood it, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
My oldest son is named Stark, and my youngest son is named Monroe. And so Tony Stark is Iron Man, and Jack Monroe is Nomad.
Monroe. Yep, I got it. I got it immediately.
I know you would, but
is the next one going to be Vance for Vance Astro?
I mean, it depended on the child. Originally, if Monroe was going to be a girl, her name was going to be Winter, because we were going to go Game of Thrones instead.
Oh, Game of Thrones. Okay.
Yeah. So we were going to have Stark and Winter, because we were going to have Stark wear a t-shirt that said Winter is coming, and then that was going to be the announcement.
You're the fucking worst. You were going to use your kids for a cheap fucking pun?
Listen, I have one gift and I stick to it. All right? When you're as talented as I, you have to share it with the world.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was more than that. Like, I think that the seasonal names are fun, but there's a lot of summers and autumns. And I even grew up knowing like a few women named Spring.
Really?
But dead serious, 2, in fact. But I'd never met anyone named Winter, and I always thought that was a beautiful name. So I was like, yeah, I'm down with that. And my wife really liked it. She also really liked Stevie for a
Stevie
girl.
Nicks?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I was down with that too. But anyway.
Okay, well, we got off the rail. We finally left the rails.
In the outro.
So that was amazing. Like, I guess if people are still listening, thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will
you made it to the credits. This is the part where Nick Fury asks you to join the Avengers.
Just say no. It's a better prospect at this point, but we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye.